Okay, fantastic. Okay, so today's video, and I'm afraid you won't see my lovely face, I'm not all that presentable, is about Bakemono. Yes, yes, Jason, they all are. Just all those Bakemono, getting rid of them. So, so today we'll be talking about Bakemono. It'll be both a lore and tactica, so to speak. They're mixed together, I'm afraid. I couldn't really separate the two once you get into profile design and what we were thinking behind them. So while men fight their wars in the world above, below them lies domains untouched by sunlight. These deep dark places beneath the earth live the endless hordes of Bakemono. For an age, they were thought to be mischievous creatures of myth, deemed little more than a nuisance. Now, the savage waves upon the Jua Isles and the Bakemono are becoming a serious threat. Most Bakemono are smaller than a man, representing a very minor threat to a trained warrior, but not all Bakemono are the same. There are several different subspecies. The smallest and shrewdest of the Bakemono are the Sho Bakemono, just small Bakemono. Very cunningly named there. This is usually shortened to Shobak. But given that they're the most cunning of the Bakemono, the Council of Shadows membership is almost exclusively Shobaks. Wu Zhang is a Shobak, and you can see how significantly smaller he is compared to all the other Bakemono available. When people mention Bakemono, they're traditionally speaking about the most common subspecies. Smaller than a fully grown man, it's through their sheer numbers that these Bakemono present a threat. The majority of Bakemono sculpts are, strangely enough, the common Bakemono. Next up is the larger variety, are the Dai Bakemono. These often serve as shock troops as they're smart enough to understand orders, but not enough so that they'll question the orders. Among the diebacks that we start to see the regenerative powers of the larger subspecies. Uk Kang and the Trouble Brutes are diebacks. Lastly, they're the largest and rarest of the Bakemono subspecies, the Rincho. These tower over their brethren, are prone to outbursts of great violence when angered. While the Council of Shadows is almost entirely made up of Shobaks, there are tales of Ragnar, a Rincho that managed to become a member. During his time on the Council, membership was much reduced to his frequent outbursts, and surprising no one, the sculpt of a Rincho is the Rincho. Bakemono are social creatures by necessity, and the social unit of the Bakemono is the tribe. Each tribe is made up of several tight-knit families, usually blood-related, and the Bakemono have a very highly competitive society. And while the Rincho are physically the most powerful, Bakemono prize cunning and intelligence as prime virtues. This ensures that the Shobak often survive to adulthood, and beyond that, push themselves into positions of power. Hexes occupy a unique niche in Bakemono society. Typically Sho Bakemono, but it could be others. Potentially any Bakemono could become a Hexa, but as I said, they predominantly seem to be Shobak. While all Bakemono treat the darkness surrounding them as a living, breathing thing, it is the Hexes that have learned to take power from it. These Shujenya act as the voice of darkness and interpret its demands through auguries and omens. Finally, it is the Council of Shadows that rules the Bakemono society. The Council are a collection of tribal leaders, most of whom rose to their positions through cutthroat scheming. It is Council that provides the direction drive for the entire species, which the main goal of which is the subjugation of all non-Bakemono. Do you have any questions about Bakemono society? Give that 20 seconds for chat to catch up. On to the important stuff. Good. All right, well, if anyone has any questions, just spam it into chat and we'll get onto it. All right. When you start to play Bakemono and Bushido, the first thing you're going to need to learn to do is use the Bakemono Horde communal card. Bakemono profiles are unusual in that they don't store their own chi. It goes on the Bakemono Horde card instead. This means that effects that remove chi from a profile card do nothing to Bakemono. Conversely, cards that generate chi are wonderful for Bakemono. Bakemono profiles can spend the chi on the Horde card to power their own chi feats, allowing them flexibility in their chi feats that is unseen in most other factions. There are also famous family houses like Takashi Ito. Possibly. We haven't really explored the depths of Bakemono society since nearly all the background material is written from the point of view of the samurai clans, I guess. So what you do see with the Bakemono is, how do I explain this better? Okay. What the human world experiences of Bakemono society probably represents their fringe elements, the outcasts, the tribes that are too weak to stay in the core caverns of their society. It's the outsiders who've been pushed to the edges, so they're the ones who are most likely forced to interact with people. So actual Bakemono society may be a lot more sophisticated than we realize. This can probably be seen best when you look at what Wei Shu is wearing compared to all the other Bakemono sculpts. They're all dressed in rags, tattered bits, scavenged armor, but Wei Shu is dressed in finery. But back to the Bakemono Horde card. Okay, not only can you use chi on this card to spend on your own chi feats, you can use this wonderful variety of chi feats on the card. Now, the most iconic of these is Someone from Shadows. So it's expensive, but it allows you to bring another Bakemono into play. This can quickly lead to the Bakemono player overwhelming their opponent through sheer numbers. You will just stack up the activation advantage, and unless they're all tireless, you're probably going to just out-activate them. This is, of course, countered by killing the Bakemono faster than they can come in. Given the Bakemono's worship of darkness, it is no surprise that they can bring it with them to the battlefield with the Darkness Chi feat. It reduces line of sight to a measly 4 inches for models that aren't Bakemono or Soulless or Sixth Sense. It's pretty common to see in warbands or in tournament warbands people bringing at least one model with Soulless or Sixth Sense just to stop the Darkness or Breath of Yurei from Cult. Otherwise, the next Chi feat comes into play and you'll see all the midline objectives get activated on turn 1. So Shadow Walk, sorry, we'll go back to Darkness because the line of sight thing is quite important. Remember, models can only run up to a point in their line of sight. So if your line of sight is only 4 inches, most models walk that fast, so running at that point becomes very pointless. In fact, Ito can walk faster than that. So Darkness also allows a lot of Bakemono profiles to strike out of the shadows. They can often use range attacks at the Darkness that will surprise their target. This is especially deadly when using the Bakemono boomers because they have such a long range. Darkness also has a natural synergy with Shadow Walk, as I was attempting to mention earlier. So this is it's a very large place effect. But it can only be used if the Bakemono is not in line of sight of an enemy model. Something to note is that while camouflage stops the model being targeted, it doesn't mean the model, you can't draw a line of sight to the model. So you can still see the model, you just can't target it. Against an opponent who hasn't brought any models that can pierce the darkness, Shadow Walk will allow you to swarm up the table and seize whatever you like, really. And finally, there's Mob Mentality, which is a mechanism for Bakemono to attempt to pass fear tests. And against certain factions, totally useless. Besides the Bakemono Communal Horde card, there are certain traits and features that are common across nearly all Bakemono profiles. They all have 4 wounds, they all have Camouflage 4, Cowardly, and Tiny. So only having 4 wounds makes Bakemono very fragile. Combined with their terrible stat line in general, you should expect your Bakemono to die in droves, especially against more aggressive factions. This can be a very satisfying experience for your opponent. Even if they lose the game 3-0, they've killed like 10 Bakemono. You know, everyone feels good after a game like that. Camouflage means that you'll want to play on boards with plenty of obscuring or blocking terrain to provide the cover bonus. So special cards that bring in terrain are always valuable for Bakemono players. The Ricefield Barricade is good for everyone. You should all take it. Mastercrafted Miniatures offers pre-made one. So it can make this camouflage can make targeting Bakemono surprisingly difficult until models are essentially already in melee range. But you shouldn't rely on it to keep your model safe. It only takes one enemy model to get 6 cents, then leap over whatever barrier you put in place, and then there goes your expensive support model. Cowardly is also very iconic to Bakemono, as I suffer it by far the most out of any factions. It makes fear extremely powerful against Bakemono, and as a Bakemono player, you'll have to make warband choices to mitigate the effects of fear. Whether you bring in a model like Weishu or Okina and Oto, something to help deal with high fear values. And Tiny just means that most models can see over Bakemono. Making a wall of Bakemono to hide your guy behind doesn't work, because small models will still see over the top of your models. On the plus side, though, you can hide behind most walls. The main downside of being tiny is size tests are awful for Bakemono, like really super, super bad. If you see lightning roots, you are in trouble. Or you better have the place effects ready. So, for Bakemono, there are also 3 themes. Dun dun dun. The first that players will encounter is Escort. Since it's the theme from the Savage Wave starter box, my personal experience of it is that it allows for an aggressive playstyle, as it gives you easy access to distraction chi feat, and losing a Bakemono doesn't hurt your chi generation overall. You have guaranteed chi generation equal to the number of Bakemono you recruited, even if they're all dead. Distraction is like stupidly flexible. It's got a 50% success rate against 2 chi models, and it goes up to 80-something against 1 chi models, and it's spammable. It's active if it doesn't work first time. Pulling it on out there, guys. So it allows you to change your model's facing. So you can do things like you can enable Shadow Walk if there's a model that can see you, and you can turn models around just for the surprise. Given the amount of chi on the Bakemono Horde, you're going to see this chi feat several times a turn if the Bakemono need it. A little neat trick I discovered earlier was you can if you're shooting through another model's Zoc, just rotate that model so it's facing somewhere else, and there's no Kevin Costner effects in play at that point. There is a trick to maximizing chi generation as well with this theme. You only recruit one of each type of Horde Bakemono, leaving the other wound track free. When the Bakemono you recruited dies, you summon in the other wound track. This way you've got the theme bonus giving you chi and the new Bakemono giving you chi, rather than just the one. You can sort of double up on the chi generation. The main downside of Escort is the number of profiles you have available. Key Bakemono support profiles just aren't available, so no Okina and Oto, and none of the super cool stuff like the Neon Rider or any of the bats. Despite all that, this is currently my favorite theme, and the Escort theme represents the agents of the Shadow the Council of Shadows enacting some specific part of their plan. Previously, most of the Bakemono that people met been fringe outcast tribes. Those pushed the edge of Bakemono society, and Escort lets us see the more sophisticated coming to the fore. Next up, we have the Thousand Eyes, the original Bakemono theme. It presents a way to play the Bakemono more as a swarm and reflects a mass horde of Bakemono overwhelming your opponent. You're encouraged to recruit or summon in, well, everything really. Ideally, both models from an available card. The main benefit of the theme is it effectively gives you 5 free chi on turn 1. This because you get the Darkness chi. Yes, you get the Darkness chi feat automatically in effect. You don't have to get your first activation off or anything. It's there straight away. Nothing your opponent can do to stop that. And the free chi allows you to essentially accumulate a large pool of chi quickly, which is one of the key things about playing Bakemono. You need to figure out how to amass that chi on your horde card and when to spend it and when not to. While Escort drops your opponent's dice down when possible using distraction, Thousand Eyes generally works to give your Bakemono extra dice. They do this by combining the group trait, the group benefit of the theme, with the Thousand Kin chi feat. In ideal circumstances, the Bakemono will gain a dice from coordinated attack. The enemy model will lose a dice from the melee assist. So finally, the other big benefit, in my opinion, for Thousand Eyes is that it allows you to recruit the cavalry profiles of the faction and anything to do with bats. And strangely, the Kaihei I realized earlier, but I didn't have time to formulate their cards and make a nice graphic for it. Okino and Oto are also major gains for the theme of Escort, as they give huge swaths of Bakemono the option for last stand. So just when you thought fighting Bakemono couldn't get any worse, now they won't die. And finally, there's the latest theme, which is kind of crazy. I've not really experienced it myself yet, but it drops a few profiles from 1,000 Eyes, namely the animals, the raw animals, but every model gets Banzai. And it is certainly an aggressive theme, and the key to using it seems to be knowing when to discard the theme, because getting it wrong can really screw you as your models enter invalid game states, and that immediately makes them exhausted. Another sort of strange thing about the theme is I don't think it really encourages you to bring the Neon or Bat Rider profiles, as they already have Banzai, so they don't need to gain it. If other people are playing this, feel free to let me know and give me some feedback, because I don't have any for that theme just yet. We're now gonna. Does anybody have any questions about the Horde card or theme, or themes, plural? We'll wait 20 seconds. Then we'll move into profiles. Up at some point. Okay, well, if anybody has any questions, feel free to interject at any point. All right, so we'll start with the most iconic of all Savage Wave profiles, Trapeng. He's smarter and more agile than any of his brethren, and something of a loner. Trapeng has a bat companion that he sends out to distract and annoy his opponents. And of all the Bakemono, I would say Trapeng has the most experience of the world above. Trapeng's stat line is very slightly different from other Bakemono in that he has a decent range attack, or range pool. Sorry, he doesn't actually have a range attack, but he has a good range pool of 3. So cards like Throw a Rock are decent with him. His main power... Also, he has Camouflage 2 rather than 4. So he is much easier to hide behind terrain and prevent things attacking him. His main benefit for the Savage Wave player is that he brings a free stunned marker every turn. Be aware that it says target, so he needs line of sight to whatever he wants to stun. I did have a test game earlier where I stuck him behind a rice whale barricade and realized he couldn't see anything. Nothing to stun. And this free stun is the primary method for the Savage Wave to drop an opponent's dice pool down. In addition to this, Trapeng has one of the most rage-inducing chief eeks in the game, Snare. It covers a huge area. If you get him into the middle of the board, that's pretty much the whole board. And with the amount of chi that the Bakemono generate, you will see this chief eek used several times a turn, especially if an opponent charges or runs. This chief feat is also the prime reason why I value the Idol of the Deep so much. Because if Trapeng can get in base to base with an Idol of the Deep, you've got Snare for days. And with the most popular profile out of the way, we will move on to the starter set. Ta-da! This is the entry point for most players into both the Savage Wave and the Bakemono Horde. So there's a list of the models you'll find in it. You have Wei Shu, his Thrall Ig, and one of each of the standard Horde Bakemono. So Wei Shu is the first of the Herald profiles. The Herald is not some mere hermit hexer. No, this is an important member of Bakemono society, and his appearance reflects that. You can see he's got finery, he's got a nice weapon, he's got some sort of strange prayer sensor. And the heralds precede the coming of the Council of Shadows and serve as the hand of the council when needs arise. It's amazing. Wishu's magic is slightly different from the other Shugenya in that his magic focuses on controlling and manipulating the minds of his fellow Bakemono, which makes him something far more sinister than any mere hexer. And yes, he has an unusually high range pool, making him the prime rock thrower of the faction. We recently heard there's a 5 wound rock thrown the other day. So the first main benefit of Wei Shu is his very high chi stat. And this is incredible for the Bakemono Horde, being able to generate 3 chi on a single profile. It also links to the mind control chi feat. This allows other Bakemono to use his chi stat for fear and disguise tests and gives the Bakemono bravery. So he gives you anti-fear attack, a method to pierce disguise. It's all there. Psychic Drain is another chi feat that helps the Bakemono Horde. Certain factions find themselves quite starved for chi on key profiles, like Kenter is a good example for Prefecture. He likes to spend his 2 chi every turn. Hibiki is also another one for Jung. He likes to sit on 2 chi, so if you engage him, you can trigger Parley. But if you strip the key off him with Psychic Drain, their performance drops dramatically. And chi removed by this chi feat ends up on the Bakemono Horde card, so Wishu is adding more chi to that Horde card. And finally, Cancel Shield is probably the least used of his chi feats. It provides temporary additional wounds for a Bakemono, so it can be vital for getting a particular Bakemono to survive a stack of poison or bleeds, or if you think you're going to engage a very, very dangerous opponent. So, and it's Tsunagi, or sort like a big hitter. So you can add a big chunk of health to one of your Bakemono and hope they live through it. The downside to this is it's a complex action, so its use is kind of niche. Finally, when you're using Wei Shu, you need to remember all his chi feats are targeted. So he does need line of sight for them. This again was something I discovered not too long ago when I had him hiding behind a wall. I realized I couldn't do anything with him. And the most famous of Wei Shu's victims is the thrall Ig. Ig has had his mind erased through a combination of psychedelic mushrooms and being exposed to the strange substances found in the deep caves, and through Wei Shu's magic. When Ig falls and is called back, it is unclear whether it's the same Ig or another thrall who takes up his mantle. You'll see that Ig's primary purpose is to protect heralds and council profiles, models, and he does have a very impressive bodyguard range of 3 inches. Most bodyguard ranges are 2, so he can truly leap in the way. On the other hand, when he's not on bodyguard duty, he's very easy to flip onto the offense when you don't need him to stay close to Wei Shu. And while Wei Shu is alive, you can always summon Ig back. I mean, Ig gains the Horde type. You do, however, have to recruit Ig for him to gain the Horde type. You can't just bring him into the game without recruiting him first. He does have Pylon, which is a very useful chi feat. You'll see it quite a lot of similar effects in the princesses and some of the Ashigara, the prefecture. So a common way to use Ig is you leave another Bakemono like semi-exposed in front of him about 3.5 inches away, and just wait for the enemy model to attack them. And when you do, you trigger Pylon, you get the melee assist bonus, and away you go. Another great thing about Ig is he is one of the few solo models available to Savage Wave, so he provides a guaranteed way to get around fear, something all Bakemono players will have to figure out how to do at some point. I'm not going to go through the baseline Horde profiles because they're all quite standard. There's no tactica required for them. Summon Raiders first. You might need the occasional Archer, but they're my last go-to one. Next we'll go on to the Hexes. Strange. Missing a page. Alright, well, we're apparently missing someone. We're missing the Father of Shadows himself, but I will come back to him later. Alright, so this Hexer is Zhang Fu. There's next to no information about Zhang Fu other than the fact they are a Hexer. While less obviously useful than Wu Zhang, Zhang Fu shouldn't be underestimated. I mean, chi feats like Shadow Tendrils combine very well with other Bakemono profiles, despite the chi feat being quite powerful on its own. thing. With the default move stat of Bushido being 4, Shadow Tendrils drops that down to a measly 1. So if that's a melee profile, that model is basically out of action for a turn. And if you really don't want that model to move, you can combine it with Trapeng Snare Chi Feet. And that model, quite bluntly, isn't going to move at all at that point. Stripped Soul is something of a niche Chi Feet. But it does shine in scenarios with objectives rather than zones. You can use it to make a model unable to do scenario actions, and the other use for it you will often see when people do use it is stopping models providing melee assist penalties. And don't knock that spirit block marker either. A lot of our profiles are designed with their chi generation in mind, so denying a model a turn of chi generation can really hamper what they can do. I'm going to see what happened to Wu Zhang. Was supposed to be in here, but he has vanished. Oh, here we go. I found his text, but I can't find his card. Shadows. Shu Igzong. Right, apparently I didn't make a graphic for him. Well, you'll just have to go through with the text, I'm afraid, guys. Sorry. So the first named Bakemono produced by GCT Studios was Wu Zhang, the quintessential hermit hexer. He lives in a vast cavern he's claimed as his own, where he mutters to himself and paints strange murals on the walls of a high ledge. These murals both record and guide the history of the Bakemono tribes, and are known to contain the secrets hexers need to understand the darkness they worship. He's also served by a select few acolytes who live at the base of his ledge, and generally keeps company of bats, both normal and giant. For all he knows, Wu Zhang almost never speaks to other Bakemono, yet he holds a vaunted position in their society. When he requires something of other Bakemono, his attendants just pass on his messages, and Wu Zhang's will is done. So the ancient hexer brings some of the most powerful chi feats in the Savage Wave to the table. Curse Fate can turn a mighty warrior into a pitiful wreck with a decent success level, but it does rely on the degree of success. So targeting a high chi model with Curse Fate will yield middling results, while targeting one chi model could find that model having to discard all its dice all the time. And this is across all forms of tests. So if you need a model to fail chi feats, you can hit it with that. If you need it to fail movement tests, you name it, all the dice. Grasp of Darkness is Wu Zhang's least used chi feat, but only requires success rather than succeeding by degrees. Weak is a hidden gem in Bushido. A weak model has a hard time inflicting wounds, and against Bakemono, less wounds means your Bakemono horde can continue to grow in number. Don't use Grasp of Darkness on models with critical strike, because you only increase their chance to get that critical hit. It's only 4% extra, but every percent matters. And Psychic Venom has long been regarded as an Ito clan chi feat, but Wu Zhang had it first. With his access to the Bakemono Horde communal pool, don't be afraid to spam it either, because it's not a once per turn chi feat. You can lay on those Psychic Venoms, and besides that, most models in Bushido only have 6 wounds, so a full stack of Psychic Venom puts them on a timer. They'll die in 3-ish turns for most profiles. We've done Zhang Fu, and the final Shujenya is Zihan and his Hulk form Zhu. Zihan is regarded as insane, even by other Bakemono. He's consumed, I think it's a he, they have consumed every type of mushroom found in the Bakemono caves, and one of the side effects of this is Zihan can now transform into the massive zoo, and using their extensive knowledge of these mushrooms, Zihan can throw them at his foes to apply a variety of different state effects. I don't think Zihan is a Shujenya in the traditional sense, as Zihan doesn't have any offensive chi feats. Instead, as I said, Zihan applies negative effects by throwing mushrooms at things. When you do throw those mushrooms, I would definitely recommend boosting. Zihan is one of the few profiles available to the Bakemono Horde with a boostable ranged pool, and you do not want to miss with your mushrooms because you only have 3 of them. And when you're out of mushrooms, or simply when opportunity presents itself, Zihan can transform into the impressive zoo, a rare source of combo attack in Savage Wave. He's no slouch in melee. He's got 3 dice, boostable. He's got 8 wounds and tough 1, so he's unlikely to go down in a 1. The big downside to Zoo is for all his extra health, he can only take 4 wounds before the end phase, because if he gets the end phase of 4 wounds, when he turns back into Zihan, he dies. And you can mitigate this a little with the regeneration effect of mutation, but it is something to be very aware of when you're using Zihan and Zoo. I suppose if you took 4 to 6 damage in Zoo form, something went horribly wrong regardless. Strange. This was not the. Oh yes. This very odd. I am missing some slides. Give me. Lost some slides. Oh well, they might turn up later. I can't find track. I don't have time to make it on stream. Right, so for track, no one knows who taught the talk of Bakemono the code of Bushido, but track appears to have taken to the heart. While the rest of Bakemono society looks down on track with scorn, no one can deny how useful his skills are in a fight. There are hints as to who taught track how to fight, as track possesses the Kuruma Koryu unique effect, giving him brutal if he places all his melee dice in attack. The main contender for teacher would be Tenbatsu, as he is the one samurai available to Savage Wave. No, actually, but he's one of the only samurai available to Savage Wave, and he has the Kuruma Koryu unique effect too. Track has several features that make him attractive to a Bakemono player. He has a number of abilities and traits that mean he can usually get more dice than his baseline of 2. Track can boost for 1 and has coordinated attack with other Bakemonos, so there's no reason not to boost him as far as you can most of the time. The key thing with track is to remember that you can only get as many dice as double your basic statistic. So 4 dice is the most track will ever be able to roll in an exchange. And track also has access to combo and powerful attacks, so he's quite flexible in what he can deal with. The downside to track is, unfortunately, he's still cowardly. So if you recruit him into a warband, be sure to bring him something to help deal with high fear values. I'm sorry I don't seem to have the slide. It was here earlier. I've definitely made one. Don't know what happened to it. But we'll move on to the appropriate profile here, which is Ukang. And Ukang is a fiercely proactive member of the dieback subspecies, so much so that even the Council of Shadows have taken note. This dieback is the only source of bodyguard for basic Bakemono. Ig possesses bodyguard too, but it's restricted to protecting currently just 1 model. So if you want to protect anything other than Weishu, Ukang is your Bakemono. If you ever feel, trapping or your Wuzang is being threatened, Ukang can provide you with the answer you're looking for. Like all Diabak, Ukang has 6 wounds, regenerates 1 wound during the end phase, and has the stupid trait. Makes Ukang considerably more durable on the board than other Bakemono. The downside is Ukang won't be doing any snare actions at any point, or complex actions either. Ukang also possesses some very interesting weapon traits, and he's got a weird niche in fighting defensive profiles, so profiles with parry and dodge. Having the chain weapon and turning off dodge actually makes him quite good at fighting Master Akari, if you're willing to spend the chi to do it. It's a really, really odd niche for him to have, but if you've got problems with Master Akari, this may be your solution. And next up, presenting a more aggressive option than Ukang are the Tribal Brutes, these are the exemplars of the Bakemono species. They present a cheap, tough option to add some backbone to your Bakemono horde, and between their Warcry and unique effect, they give Bakemono means of dealing with fear, even if that means clubbing another Bakemono over the head to get them going. Finally, on the Bakemono subspecies train, you've got the Rincho, which is the largest and rarest of Bakemono in the lore. It's one of the most common you will see on the table. So it's both a profile and a subspecies. It has native brutal, a high damage modifier, lots of wounds, and a lot of regeneration. So it is a real powerhouse in a Bakemono horde. It often forms like the go-to heavy hitter in an escort warband, and quite often also in a 1,000 Eyes one. If your opponent fails to kill the Rincho quickly, it becomes very angry. You gain access to combo tech 0 and a high fear value. The downside is you become aggressive, meaning that you'll often be on a single defense dice at the most from this point onwards. But if it doesn't die, expect the Rincho to go straight back up to pretty much full health at the end of the turn. And my favorite part of the Bakemono is that it's fearless against models on a 30mm base. So if Akira is giving you problems, just give this guy a vial of Raijin's breath and end her. Strange. Ow. Okay. With the escalating wars in the world above, there's plenty of time and the fall of night for the Bakemono to scavenge battlefields. And what scavengers they've been! From the fallen Ashigara of the prefecture, the Bakemono have managed to claim arquebus and have crazily taught themselves how to shoot such devices. So the Bakemono boomers are the other option many players will turn to when you're looking for a heavy hitter in a Bakemono warband. So while profiles like the Rincho can provide powerful melee combatants, the boomers can simply blow an enemy model off the table long before melee becomes an issue. These are probably the best profiles to utilize the power of the darkness chi feat, as given the short range is 6 inches, they can shoot out of the darkness and still surprise a target. Then use Shadow Walk to slink away while they reload, so they can operate a very good hit and run game against opponents who haven't got Sixth Sense or Solus in their warbands. Doing this though is very chi intensive, as you want to boost their ranged pool, obviously. I mean, I hope you're not just rolling the 2 dice and hoping for the best, and you're probably going to be using Shadow Walk multiple times. But if you remove an enemy model, it's most likely chi well spent. The Bakemono boomers are not the only pairing of Bakemono doing something. Okino and Oto are a mischievous pair of lazy showbacks that have strapped their war drum to the back of some unlucky slave. They can provide a serious boon to any Bakemono horde, but they won't work in the escort warband, I'm afraid. They're one of the only profiles in Savage Wave that have the leadership trait. I think Bobato is the only other one, and they have it at a higher value than any other model in the game as far as I'm aware. The downside is that the leadership area is fairly small in comparison, so they'll have to stay quite close to the action to provide their leadership bonuses. Frenzied Rhythm. Oh, supposed to be a slide there which highlighted that. Frenzied Rhythm is a chief feat you should definitely keep your eye on. It can hand out a lot of virtue tokens to a horde, like a lot. And while it's expensive, those virtue tokens are entirely worth it. The +1 strength and bravery are nice and all, but it's the last stand where this chief feat really shines. Just when you thought that Bakemono was sure to die this turn, it's going to live right on till the end phase, just being irritating. The most common use of this effect is combining it with something like the aggressive mushrooms from Zihan. So you make the enemy model aggressive, and preferably only rolling 1 dice. And you send in a Bakemono on full attack dice. If things go badly, or if the enemy model can strike first, you can still guarantee that your Bakemono will survive and quite likely get the hit in. With the spread through entire warband, it's really difficult to deal with. Especially when you can apply such bonuses to things like the Nian or Bat Rider. Speaking of which, ta-da! So, as the samurai clans and various factions above seek an edge over their enemies, so do the Bakemono below. The Council of Shadows have selected the most brave and most foolish warriors to tame the creatures that live in the darkness with them. Luckily enough, some have actually managed to succeed. I don't think it's so much as taming as clinging on for dear life. The largest benefit of the Beast Riders over a standard beast is that both of them contribute and use the Bakemono Horde chi pool. The secondary benefit is that it uses cards that work in Bakemono. The main downside is their sheer cost. They cost a lot of rice when compared to profiles with a similar stat line, but access to the Bakemono Horde chi feats is usually worth it. Both Beast Riders have Banzai and Sixth Sense, allowing them to be incredibly aggressive and simply not care about their facing after combat, for the most part, as they won't get surprised. They're both very capable of hunting down enemy Bakemono or ninjas. So Cavalry and Banzai is a great combination. It allows you for a huge amount of aggression at very long range, and you should constantly have that extra +2 damage modifier from charging. You should always have a means to charge something with that 3-inch cavalry move. The Neon Rider has the charging bonus of Slam Attack 0. If you're ever having a problem with like a Death and Decay Kairai warband, then the Neon Rider might be your solution. Again, there's a downside to this with the Neon Rider. This profile is aggressive, so if it's left exposed, it can often end up getting slaughtered simply because it will be unable to roll defense dice. And the Cave Bat Rider is the other Beast Rider available, and it's the more mobile option of the Neon Rider. Where the Neon Rider brings raw hitting power, the Cave Bat Rider can quite easily slip in and out of fights thanks to its natural Cloud Walk and Cavalry stat. And while it may have less wounds than the Neon Rider, it's much more capable of defending itself thanks to, well, first of all, it's not aggressive, but it also has natural dodge. And with that, you're much more likely to use the Bakemono on top and being able to pull off its push defense when you need it. And that's our natural residence of the caves Bakemono call home. But something of a mystery as to why some grow so large. Whether through Zhujianya magics, the diet of strange toxic fungi, or eating the occasional unlucky Bakemono, some bats have grown large indeed. These present a cheap and mobile model that's excellent at harassing the enemy backline. The Cave Bat is a decent melee fighter that can be recruited at next to no cost, which is a fairly common theme with animals in Bushido. The giant cave bat is also one of the only sources of natural poison in the faction, and it does this through the toxic fungi it ingests. I did not know this till fairly recently. I have long since scratched my head as to why the cave bat had poison 2-1. And if you thought the giant cave bat was an annoying harassment model, the Nightwing Swarm is a durable, regenerating swarm of vampiric bats. No further comment needs to be made about this profile. And finally, the last available Bakemono profile is Hertsuna, the only run-and-burn Bakemono out there, recruited by the Council of Shadows as part of an agreement with Kagekaze Zoku. Hertsuna has been trained in the arts of the Shadow Wind Ninjas, though where Hertsuna's loyalties lie remains something of a mystery. Hertsuna is a very powerful snare piece. They're able to dance about the board with an inbuilt placement effect, and they can use Shadow Walk. So while you don't have access to smoke bombs, if you've got uncountered darkness, Hertsuna can easily get to that midline objective and get back to safety. It's important to remember that Hertsuna is insignificant unless you use the Swift Executor Chi feat. This is usually a problem for ninjas due to Hertsuna's low chi generation. This is not a problem for the Bakemono Horde. Another important point about Swift Executor is that it requires and uses an activation counter. Finally, that slide was not made. I had a Minamoto one. The Wilders have dismissed Bakemonos as creatures of myth and legend, as old wives' tales told at night, or stories from drunken peasants. The Minamoto have always known better. The only known entrance into the Bakemono cave network lies in the lands of the Bear Clan, and they fight ferociously to hold the Bakemono at bay. Both the fortress and soldiers stationed there are called the Garrison of the Damned, and theirs is not a glorious task. There's no honor or glory to be gained in fighting the Bakemono. There's only duty, and a tiresome one at that. Each shift, these soldiers rise up, put on their armor, and venture into the closest tunnels to clear out any Bakemono there. Periodically, the Bakemono launch an assault on the garrison, and it seems as if the two sides are locked forever in an endless battle. Once before, the Minamoto attempted to venture deep into tunnels, hoping to rid themselves once and for all of the Bakemono menace. They have never made another attempt. After that fateful attempt, the Minamoto discussed collapsing the tunnels beneath a rockfall, but word has come from the mainland. An imperial edict forbids it. The entrance must be kept open at any cost. So, that's taken 50-odd minutes to get through all that. Anybody have any questions or queries, law or mechanical? I'm sure the stream is working. Tablet anymore? Oh, I see what happened. Check the stream. Yes. This is why some of my profiles was missing. Yes! Damn it! All my highlights and stuff. Well. Alright, I'll go through a couple of special cards that I rate very highly for the Bakemono. Sneak is my go-to card. With my Bakemono, I would not leave home without Sneak. You can use it on such great profiles as the Neon Rider, Bat Rider. Both of those can use Sneak. Just get that Shadow Walk place and away they go if you're ever bogged down. Throw a Rock is one of those semi-useful event cards. I use it as if, let's say, Tra Peng has applied his stun to a target that you're essentially declaring that is my target for the turn, and your opponent does something like move it back, so it's now out of, you can't attack it anymore. Throw rock provides you a secondary option of, okay, well, I can't attack that guy now, I'll throw rock at this guy and he'll get stunned instead. We, of course, all love throwing rocks with Weishu, and if I ever bring Weishu, there's no way I'm going to leave throw rock at home. And the two Bakemono terrain pieces, out of the two, I rate Idol of the Deep much higher than Totem Pole. Totem Pole is very useful, but I think the Believer for Bakemono is worth more than 2 chi every turn. Just through someone like Charpeng standing in base space with an idol, you can get off dozens of snares a turn. A dozen snares off a turn. 2 seconds, I need to cough. Okay, I'm not used to speaking for 50 minutes at a time. So yes, I highly rate the Idol of the Deep over the Totem Pole, but the Totem Pole is still extremely useful. My current Escort Warband brings both, and when I can bring both, I will. If I don't have enough rice for both, Idol of the Deep gets priority. When you combine these with the Rice Bell Barricade, you can pretty much construct your own wall anywhere, well, let's say anywhere on the board, nearly anywhere on the board. So that is a great Shadow Walk enabler, and you can do a lot hiding Hirtsuna behind that wall. And this was the Minamoto graphic I was going to present earlier, but I did not refresh what the stream was viewing. Oh well, these things happen. I'm afraid you guys will have to live without Trek and Wuzang. If I'll give it, I don't know, 3 more minutes for any questions, queries, or comments, then I will head off. And much video editing will be done. The attack by the Minamoto, it does not say, but I would guess some time ago. The garrison is well established. At this point, I mean, they've built a fortress on top of these Bakemono caves. One does not build a fortress quickly. Well, I suppose they must have had to build it quickly and under constant attack by Bakemono. So, some time ago. It's unspecified. We may get a timeline in the upcoming lore/campaign book, but I personally do not know. I expect that will come up when the lead writer wants to have a discussion about the Minamoto or the Savage Wave. To turn off the stream now. I do not require likes or subscribes. Like I said, I do this purely for my own enjoyment. If you have any questions after this about any of this sort of stuff, I am available readily on the Discord or on the Facebook, as my own name, Andy Palmer. So I will hopefully see you again. Good night.